On today's starting nine, Carl almost has his voice back. Jake is back from Omaha. We're going to recap a wonderful trip. We're also going to get into a little bit of Major League Baseball, but more importantly, we're just going to have some great vibes, a great show, boys. It's a great day to be alive. Let's have a wonderful starting nine. Action, and welcome back to Starting Nine. It is your handsome host, Barstool Carl, here in Chicago. And Jake, it looks like you just got back from the gym. Chest is popped or what?
Chest is not popped. I still don't have my voice back either. I thought I was getting sick for a minute. Body feels fine. You know, it's just, screaming at kids and being at World Series games and being around you two, hanging in the casino. Getting after a little bit. Yeah, voice is not there. No, I haven't worked out in a few days, but it's fine. I did let myself go. We had, you ever had Detroit-style pizza? It's kind of like,
so good.
Yeah, it's like in between a really deep dish and then like a thinner pizza. So we ate at this place called DJ's Dugout probably 6 or 7 times while we were there with all the parents, all the kids. And just smashed several pizzas. So pizzas, meatballs, just drinks. So let myself go for the week and look forward to get back on track in the next couple of days. So
it's an unprompted shout out to DJ's Dugout. I would do the same anytime you go to Omaha. Love those people. They do a great job. It's like a local chain within Nebraska. They got some in Lincoln, Omaha, a couple, I think maybe one in Des Moines or something. They do a wonderful job. That's just even saying that brings me right back to Omaha. You have got the 8 teams of fans all hanging out, having a couple beers. The tournament is still going on. The championship is played this weekend. You had a chance to go to one of the games. Chaos.
Yeah, absolute chaos. And as we were walking in, Notre Dame had taken the lead, 1-0 lead, and Texas fights back a little bit. I think the final score was like 6-2 or 8-2 or some shit like that. We were standing in line trying to get some beers, and little kids are always running up and wanting pictures, which is fine. But then like the dads, it gets overboard with the dads. You just can't get to your seat, and I finally get to my seat, and people are in and out of the aisle. I told you while we were there, it's a rough environment for me to be in.
So more comfortable doing that or taking the Sprinter van home?
The Sprinter van home by far, and not that it's uncomfortable, but I'm there trying to enjoy the game with the kids and my buddies, and it's just hard to. And there was a guy there who was a coach for one of the other Little League teams, and I saw him at this big event that they had. They had like a bonfire, and Domingo Ayala was a special guest. I think we talked a little bit about it. And this coach I met took pictures with him and his kid and signed some autographs. And this fucker is he's at the game, and he spots me somehow. And, I just keep looking over my left shoulder, and he's right there, like just staring and staring. I'm like, dude, I'm drinking a beer with the boys and watching a game. You're not going to see anything groundbreaking here. It's just I'm just a dude hanging out. Like, all right, take a look and keep it moving. But still, it's still a blast. I mean, we're sitting there cooking in the heat. We're sitting in the left field bleachers. I wouldn't have it any other way. I think it's just the best way to watch a college game. And my first time at that stadium. Just a tremendous job they've done with the new setup. So and what is it? TD Ameritrade. It used to be Rosenblatt. Now it's TD.
Yeah,
Ameritrade.
and it, like Charles Schwab Field
yeah.
at TD Ameritrade.
Yeah.
Hosted by Mutual of Omaha or something.
And my dumbass, I plug in Rosenblatt. So I'm thinking, they just they named it. They kept the name. No, so I end up at the old park by the zoo. So I gotta flip a Yui in the Sprinter. Not an easy task, but we make it happen. We get there, and it's like on the same road. It's just like 3 or 4 miles down the street. And looking for parking was just a train wreck. But we ended up. This is pretty funny. So we ended up finding a spot to park. We get out. We got a cooler in the back, and we're like, yeah, let's wait a minute. So the kids are just like, let's go. I'm like, did you not see the herd of people trying to get in before the gates open? Like, well, let's just wait. Let's give it a second. So we hang out. We had a beer at the Sprinter, and then we decided to go, and we left the fucking side door of the Sprinter just completely open. All
Like,
game.
I mean,
All game.
I heard from the missus that, I mean, like, it was like an invitation for people to just squat, come hang out, start the car, steal it.
And that tells you just how sweet the people are in Omaha. Or maybe we just got lucky. I don't know. But we had, thousands of dollars worth of baseball equipment, all the kids' bags. Cooper's cell phone was in the cup holder. Everything. Like, we had all kinds of shit. I think might have had a firearm in there. Yeah, we get in there and we open the back door, just kind of one eye open, making sure, shit's in there. Everything was in there. Maybe we just got lucky.
Well, you bring up I have a question for you. Just bring it up. I can't. You always have a firearm on you.
About 98% of the time, yes.
Now, what's the point of being as big and strong if you're gonna have a fire? Like, if I was as big as you, I wouldn't have. Like, guys like me need the firearm.
Well, I mean, if I'm with my family, I'm with my wife and kids, and it has nothing to do with being big and strong. It's, if there's a lot of times situations happen in our world, unfortunately, where people do incredibly violent things with firearms and try and cause harm to innocent people. And, as a law-abiding citizen, I like that we have the right to protect ourselves with firearms, and hopefully never have to use it. And that's the same way that anybody who's a law-abiding citizen views their Second Amendment right to be able to, have a license and to conceal carry. I have it for that one in a trillion moment where some deranged person ends up in the same place that we are, and I have to protect not only myself and my family, but the innocent people around me. So that's why it's there. Hopefully never have to use it, though.
Do you have a favorite?
A favorite firearm?
That you own, yeah.
Well, I think currently my favorite firearm is a 300 Blackout. I have it suppressed, and it's a fun gun to shoot. For the kids, you don't have to have ear protection. Whether we're just target shooting or we're trying to shoot, we're hunting hogs. It's a fun gun. And for those people who aren't familiar with
I'm looking at it right now.
Pigs, they're an invasive species. It's not like we're out there just shooting innocent animals that are minding their own business. They're destroying farmland. They're destroying farmers' crops. So, I mean, it is for sport, but it's also to preserve land and to save crops. That a lot of people buy at their grocery store. So the 300 Blackout is a very fun gun to shoot, and suppress it changes the game too, because you don't have to worry if someone's about to shoot around you. You can and throw your ear protection on. If it's suppressed, I mean, it just sounds like a cap gun. So. Very, very fun firearm to shoot.
I always like the suppressors in the movies, like the espionage movies, when they have the pistol and they put the suppressor on, they go in the bathroom or something, and there's a big fight scene.
Yep.
But then nobody can hear a big fight scene's going on because it's just like two guys.
You can still hear it.
Is it that quiet? You can still hear it.
I mean, if you're around it, you can still hear it. But like a 22 suppressed, which I have, and my kids love to shoot that. If it's dead quiet around you, you'll hear it. But I mean, if there's some commotion and in those movies, if there's like John Wick, there's music playing and like it's chaos going on. No, you wouldn't hear it. You wouldn't hear it at all. And there's no kickback to it. Oh, and he's a hell of a shooter too. I don't know if you've seen the videos of him shooting at a place called like Terran Tactical, which is, I believe, where I think they provided all the firearms for the movie. But he's in there doing like the timed, the skilled shooting from target to target with multiple firearms. Like, it's not just like he's doing like one or two little training courses. Like, this guy's like actual, and he looks legit. I think he's got some records with Terran Tactical. I could be wrong, but at least for actors, people who aren't like trained competitive shooters, I mean, he's no joke. He's legit. He can really shoot.
Yeah, I mean, just great actor too. Hardball, plays a great manager in Hardball. Shout out G Baby. But when he made that transition later in his life, starting with the John Wick movies, he's supposed to just be such a serious guy. He's also supposed to be like the best guy to work with in Hollywood. They say he is like just unequivocally the best guy. He's good to everybody on set, which I think is rare for that industry and for that part of the world. I think it's more likely than not that people are just dickheads.
Yeah, and I know I have some actor buddies, and I've heard, things like that. Guys who are great to work with, guys who are not. I've never heard a bad thing about Keanu. He seems very gracious. Kind of soft-spoken too. Yeah. Kind of soft-spoken, but a badass.
And everybody gets judged against the best, though, too. If Keanu Reeves is like a great guy and like splits his salary with the photography people, and then someone else comes in, they may be older, standoffish because they don't talk to people. It's like, well, they're just, everybody goes about their stuff, differently. You can't judge everyone against the absolute best. So,
no, and
Tony Soprano walking around, you can't do that.
I mean, you can be standoffish and still be a good person. Maybe you're not like overly social or overly friendly, off camera, off set. You can still be a good person though. Not as bubbly or over the top like with your generosity. But everybody's different.
So I do want to get to sports real quick. I'll say Matt Olson was going to join us, scheduling conflict. We like Matt Olson very much. He's a friend of the program. We also talked to Kyle Farnsworth. He was going to join us, but he's working out today because he's got a big bodybuilding competition coming up.
I just saw that.
Did you see those? He said he was like, dude, tell Jake I said hi. I'll come on after the competition. I'm not even joking. I'll show you the DMs. But he's training right now, no carbs, not in a position to chop it up.
I got a alert about that. I don't know if it was on MLB or something like that. And so I pulled it up, and I knew he was always, a big guy and liked to train. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think he played like some men's league football and men's league
semi-professional football,
semi-professional. And he's yoked. I mean, what's most impressive is his lower half. Like his legs are huge. Obviously arms, everything looks great. So he's got his first competition coming up, men's physique. So he looks outstanding. How old is he? He's in his
I would guess 44.
44.
That's a pure guess.
So hopefully he wins this competition. Hopefully he can get some carbs back in his system. We have a lot in common in that regard. Like, he obviously loves to train. I don't know if I have any ambitions of entering a competition, but more power to him because I know guys who have done that. I know how hard it is to get your body in that state. And he probably, the days leading up to it, you feel like you want to pass out because you're restricting so many, so many calories. It's kind of like cutting weight for like a fight. Those MMA guys, they can barely walk off stage because they're so depleted, so dehydrated. So hopefully Farnsworth will join our show at some point after that competition, after a first place win, man. That'd be cool.
So I'm texting you right now a video of Kyle Farnsworth in a bench clearing brawl that is huge to my childhood and my generation that are Cubs fans. And I mean, it's easily the biggest ass kicking. People always talk about Robin Ventura and whatnot.
It's the one where
familiar with this one, right?
Yeah, it's the one where he kind of goes for the double leg takedown and slams him on the ground, right?
Do you like a pitcher leaving the mound to go confront him at home plate, or are you kind of stand your ground?
No, I like that a lot because why wait? The longer you wait, the more time you give everybody else to get there to break it up. So I love it. Yeah, this is definitely one of the best ones. Let me watch it.
The other thing, too, while you're watching, I'll explain. Paul Wilson's pitching for the Reds. Paul Wilson came up as a huge prospect with the Mets, along with Jason Isringhausen and a guy named Brett Herbison. And they were like the big three with the Mets. And then just, stuff doesn't really happen. Paul Wilson ends up going to the Reds. And this is, like the height of the steroid era in baseball. And it's just like a very aggressive, emotional, go fuck yourself time. And the Reds just didn't pitch well. They didn't play good defense, but they always hit well. And it was just a funny rivalry because the Cubs were a better team. And But Paul Wilson was mad. He was like the leader of the Reds, and he certainly had shit to say to fucking Kyle Farnsworth.
Yeah.
And that's when everybody found out Kyle Farnsworth is like a double black belt and some shit. Or
Well, and just by looking at him too, he's probably not the first guy you want to fuck with. And you couldn't. I mean, I'm just still watching this. It looks like they can't get Farnsworth off of him. Like he just won't stop. You know?
What's harder out of this picture from Farnsworth? Do you think is it harder to build the quad, the shoulder? A lot of this is kind of standing out to me.
Lower half is probably the most difficult because people want to give it the least amount of attention. But when you're a guy like Farnsworth and you're actually dedicated to doing a competition like this, maybe that's not the case. Like I like to work out my lower half. I probably trained lower body more frequently than my upper body outside of like some shoulder work during my career because, starts from the ground up. Every kid needs to understand that your power starts in your feet. And we've talked about that before. And here's Farnsworth on with the takedown. The takedown was a little bit high. It would have been nice to see him go lower. He kind of grabbed him around, kind of his like just above the belly button. You typically want to shoot for kind of below the waist to get him up off of his feet, and then just you slam him down. But man, his legs are huge legs, huge upper body. I'd like to know what he weighs in that. He's probably 250, right? 260.
I'd say at least based on the height alone. I mean, he carried like 230 as a playing weight, so. I mean, I would have guessed 275.
And he's a fan of puka shells. He likes puka shells. He's got them on. He's pitching in them. Man.
Says the guy who pitched. You pitched a lot of fighting stuff. Goofy, like body centric iron.
Did I?
Manage.
Didn't
you pitch in that stuff?
You're saying I did without knowing that I did.
I thought you were.
Look, the guy from Fight in Japan was always there in Anaheim during the start of the season or whenever you were there. He'd toss out some shit. I might have worn it here and there, but I did think it was a little goofy. You're right about that.
Now I'm looking for pictures of you in necklaces or like what was your flair?
I had a David Yurman dog tag that I pitched in for a little while in Baltimore, but it popped up and almost chipped one of my front teeth, so I stopped wearing it. I'm not a chain guy. I'm not really a chain guy. I like watches. I don't wear a wedding ring. That's why I got the B tattoo on the finger. I don't like anything in my hands or around my neck. So
I'm a big wedding ring guy, but now that we're talking about it, it hasn't been polished or anything, but there's something about when I see it, it's not even like a reminder of Mrs. Carl as much as it is just like
to have it.
Like I'm at that point. But I was a younger idiot.
At that point in your life.
I'm a first ballot Hall of Fame young idiot.
I have a couple wedding bands. I bought one, obviously the one that I have when we got married, but I didn't have any diamonds in it. So I was like, man, I'd like some stones in a wedding ring. And so I'm in LA, and like if I'm in LA by myself, like there's a good chance I'm going to be spending some money. So I go to there's a place that I like. A lot of people probably know about Chrome Hearts. So I go to Chrome Hearts, and I was in there just I didn't have anything in mind. I'm like, it wasn't even a wedding ring. I was just going there. I knew that I probably spent some money on some stuff. So I'm like, hey, here's a hoodie. Love the hoodie. Had in my size, got the hoodie. And I'm like, hey, let's look at some rings. I know they have some wedding bands. So I found one that fit and just, made the impulse purchase. And it didn't have stones in one place on the ring where I wanted some stones. So I called a guy of mine, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to send this to you. Can you put some diamonds here, 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 and here? So he did it. And I wore it maybe 3 or 4 times. And it's just, it's sitting in my room. I mean, I've got it if I throw a suit on. But like I go to the gym, I go to practice. I'm doing this podcast with you. Like I'm never in a position where like I want a ring on. Or is that should I just have it on all the time?
I think you have to make a commitment. You either wear it all the time. Like Andy Dalton was made famous. Shouldn't say made famous, but when they had Hard Knocks following him around, your boy TCU Horned Frog, he would wear a rubber ring. He would trade out of his wedding band and wear a rubber ring. But to him, it was like, you know, he wanted to be reminded of his wife in the huddle or something, or he wanted to know who he was playing
I know
for
that I'm
shit.
married. I don't need to be reminded. I know I'm married. I know I got 2 kids. I don't like when dudes wear the plastic or the rubber ring like while they play. It's fine to do it, but man, like
I got a buddy who keeps a bag of them in his golf bag because he's just like, yeah, nice guy too.
Just take it off while you play. I mean, there's guys that pitch with it on when they play. I'm sure that your wife knows that you love her. Mm-hmm. Or the guys that wear it on their chain, their ring around their chain while they play. Man, just set it in the locker. It'll be there when you get back. When you get back in the clubhouse, it's going to be there.
Now, what do you think of this? A lot of guys in Omaha this week, Texas A&M and Notre Dame guys, they get class rings, and those guys love wearing class rings. They're walking around.
I'm not a class ring guy. I think that the majority of people that are class ring guys from their alma mater, their college, are, and I could be wrong, but this is my theory, are guys that didn't play sports. I don't think you're going to find a guy in that College World Series that will wear a class ring. I don't believe so. Let's find out. Let's ask people.
I think if you have a class ring from like West Point or Annapolis or obviously the Air Force Academy, I'm going to lump I think Citadel and Virginia Commonwealth or Virginia Military Institute. Virginia Military Institute. My brother-in-law is a Citadel guy, and I went and visited the Citadel with him. It's so badass. It's just so cool. But anyways, yeah, I think those guys can get away with it because there's that the way that the history is tied to their school is a little bit different than the guy walking around Notre Dame who's like, we were the first Irish Midwestern. It's like, shut up. No, shut up. But Citadel's like, yo, we fired the first shots or fired the first defensive shots of, you know, the Civil War. So we wear our ring to remember those boys or something cool.
But
shout out, Zach.
That's awesome. I love the history of the stories. That's great. Nothing against any university. But I mean, then how many rings is too many? Like, you got a wedding ring, you got a class ring. Like, fuck, you're just going to fill up all the fingers?
That's too much. I think you have to pick class ring or wedding ring, and then
one or the other.
And I think once you get married, you move the class ring over to your engagement finger as like just a sign of how like you're fully bonded. Then
so that's not a bad thing to do. So it symbolizes that you are married, but it's also your class ring. So you're wearing it on your left ring finger. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I'm more okay with that than seeing a guy with 4 or 5 rings on. Like, and that just tells me too that if you wear that many rings, you don't use your hands enough. You're not working with your hands. Because, you know, are you going to be, you know, does that make sense? Like, you're not moving things around. You're not picking heavy shit up and putting it down and picking it up again. Like, you can
really judge a man by his hands.
You probably have fragile hands if you have all these rings on.
You judge a man by his hands? I do.
Sure, of course. Yep, and their handshake.
You know, I give a handshake that has an impression of a bigger hand than it is. I have regular size hands, but I'm going to tell you a true story. I'm a junior on the baseball team. My buddy's a senior. We go and it's like the end of the season or whatever, and we're doing the PSI test. And I get the highest PSI test on the team for my right hand, and then I get like the 4th highest for my left. And if you add the numbers together, I was 2nd. And then my buddy who was a senior, he had the 2nd highest right and like the highest left, so he was number 1. And that's the type of stuff we compete. We still jaw with each other to this day about the PSIs that we had for our grip test. He gets drafted by the Rockies in the 13th round. He goes out. It's the next year he's in spring training or whatever, and part of their like physical check-in, they're doing the PSI test. He calls me. You know, I'm a senior in college. He calls me. He's like, bro, you wouldn't believe it. Your right hand PSI is right now number 7 in the Rockies minor league system. And we were just tap dancing up and down. I was so excited because I was like, man, my hand strength still plays. My
Hey,
fastball
and
may
grip
not,
strength,
but my grip strength fucking plays. Boy.
Grip strength is significant in a lot of ways, but like for longevity, for I think it correlates to like your lifespan too. The more grip strength you have, 100%. We can confirm that. But yeah, grip strength is very important.
That's a follow up.
That's
actually I'm writing down
first
follow up.
things you lose as you age is grip strength, muscle mass. So that's why maintaining those two things and just getting your ass in the gym every once in a while, a couple times a week, just to build a little muscle mass. Because I think you lose 5 to 8% a year. Like once you get to a certain point. And how many old people that like fell down, broke a hip, never recovered, and they died a few years later?
It's tough, man.
It's tough as shit.
Hey, speaking of 5 to 8%, let's talk percentages. Let's talk discounts. Let's talk lowest prices because I got them guaranteed, fellows. Game Time, the exclusive ticketing partner of Barstool Sports. It's a ticketing app that makes it easier than ever to score last-minute deals on tickets to sports, concerts, and shows, and they guarantee the lowest price. They cracked the code on how to score deals on last-minute tickets. And I'm telling you guys, just in Omaha, it was a hard time getting into Texas Notre Dame game because so many fans had traveled down. And I'm waiting to the last second, all of a sudden, boom. Biggest last-minute price drop you can't even imagine. I get great seats. I'm walking in the stadium, enjoying myself. And I want you guys to be a part of this. And the way you can be a part of it, about $20 off your first purchase. All you have to do is download the Game Time app, go to the account tab to create a login, and redeem code STARTING9 for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's STARTING9 for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time, last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. I was wondering if we could talk LIV Tour for a second here because I think it's interesting that everybody has such a strong opinion about this. I can't remember the last time like the boys were hanging out on obviously Father's Day Sunday, sitting around the club having a couple of drinks in the afternoon, and I mean it's all people are talking about. I go to softball last night, and you're sitting around with the boys. There's like 30 guys, different teams having beers. It's all the buzz is just LIV Tour, LIV Tour, LIV Tour.
Yeah.
I'm
So
curious,
what? Yeah.
obviously,
What do some of the guys
perspective,
think,
man? So, let me say this. Let me say this off. Let me say this off the top before I put you in a position. Almost every single person that I've talked to about this, privately, not like publicly, like, hey, let's do a podcast and talk about it, every single person said they'd go play and take the money. Almost everybody.
That's what I'm getting from a bunch of my buddies, and one of my friends texted me a couple of days ago. I said, just the PGA coverage sucks. He said, I get excited about F1 as it's one race every 2 weeks. He said, I want to see these guys with MLB type money, and they can still, like we talked a little bit about it before, they can still play in the majors. Like the PGA doesn't control the majors, so they can go do their thing and make a bunch of money and then still play in the majors. It's just like these guys are fed up with it. They're fed up with the way it's ran, and these guys are going to come in and throw a bunch of money at you. Why wouldn't you do it?
So the big pushback is because the money comes from the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund, which is
where does all the money come from in the NBA? How much money are they getting from China?
So that's a good question.
End of story.
That's a good question. They are getting a lot of money from China.
Yes.
And how many people use Uber? Because the Saudi Public Investment Fund, they are on the board of directors of Uber.
Yeah, I mean, so the argument's dead right there.
They took over Newcastle United. They've got a small stake in Warren Buffett's company. They've got a $713 million stake in Boeing, which people don't seem to mind. $522 million stake in Citigroup. $522 million stake in Facebook. Another $500 million in Disney. Another $500 million in Bank of America. So that's where I kind of get caught up because it's like, so now you're going to come to Brooks Koepka, who already doesn't give a fuck about the PGA Tour, has never even tried to care about the PGA Tour, and people are going to vilify him because he's like, yeah, I'm going to go get money to do my job, And if you guys have a problem with the money, if it's this big of a deal, then honestly, someone go to the federal government and figure out how to like that. That's what the federal government exists for. That's why you have an executive branch. That's why you have fucking Congress out there making laws. If a guy can't go overseas and make a paycheck, then make it fucking illegal. And if it's not illegal,
and they're also
leave the guy
people
alone.
are also jealous too. They're envious that he's making that kind of money. They don't really care about the morality and ethics of where it's coming from. That's BS, because look at all the other, like we just talked about, the NBA and all this other stuff with money from China. It's just a garbage argument. And it's like a vegan saying like, oh, you're killing all these animals while they're wearing leather boots and a leather belt and their purse is made of cowhide. Like, where do you think that comes from? That's from animals. Like, so you'll wear them, you just won't eat them. So, yeah, I love it. I love it. Maybe like there's some corruption with money in certain places, but you know, it is what it is. I don't know.
Corruption's everywhere.
The world's
man.
a messed up place.
The world is a messed up place. It's indicative of where actually the Cubs are in the standings right now. It's like, where do we go from here? It's like, can we go up? How is that for a transition to baseball?
Yeah, let's talk about a little baseball for a minute.
And this is brought to you by Rhoback. Rhoback is an active wear brand that makes high-quality hoodies, polos, and tees for men and women. Best fit, best feel. You've seen Jake wear it before. It stretches over his muscles. It also makes my body type look good. So it's a dual-function performance polo, which is like we like that breathable and moisture wicking with epic patterns. And performance hoodies. Soft and stretchy, perfect for any activity in any season, designed for transition seamlessly from one activity to the next, guys. You're going to hit some golf balls and you're going to have some coffee, maybe go for a nice long walk, play some tennis. They got the performance quarter zips. I keep going, guys, or you can go check it out yourselves. I love Rhoback. I feel more confident when I'm in Rhoback. I play better. When I play better, I feel better. When I feel better, quite honestly, guys, you know what happens from there. So go to Rhoback.com and use the code STARTING for 20% off your first order. That's spelled RHOBACK.com for 20% off all performance polos, quarter zips, tees, and hoodies with the promo code STARTING. 20% and no joke.
No, and quick Rhoback story. So we're on the way to Omaha. We've been in the Sprinter van 12 and a half hours. We're 30 minutes from Omaha. We get a notification on the navigation screen, 80 to 90 mile an hour winds approaching, find shelter, flying debris could be fatal. We're like, oh shit. Okay. So we pull into Johnson's Gas and Go. I get out of the car. It's freezing cold. So throw my Rhoback hoodie on, put the hood up. I had one in size large too. So I gave to my buddy Ricky. So we sit there, we're chilling, and I'm just like, I'm rubbing my arms like, whoa, this is amazingly comfortable. So Rhoback, shout out to one of the most comfortable hoodies I've ever worn.
And our listeners can get 20% off their next order with the promo code STARTING. I love handing out promo codes. I love knowing there's people saving a couple extra bucks just by listening to the show. That's direct value we can bring to you. We're going to bring you some direct value right now. Guys, it's June 22nd, and we got a tie for first place in the NL Central and in the NL West. And I think as a baseball fan, that's one of the best things you can get is for the season is at least having a couple divisions where you're like, you know, you're going to lose a couple at the start of the year. You know, it's not really AL West, throw it out, right? But to have the NL Central and the NL West as tight as they are right now, I think is very enjoyable for baseball fans.
It is. And shocker that it's, Milwaukee and St. Louis are the two teams kind of fighting it out. And the Cubs, I know you had a little bit of hope for a while that they were going to be, being there, but that's all right. Let's face it. It's going to be Milwaukee, St. Louis. I've always loved that division. I'm a little biased because that's when I played them for a long time. But I think I'm most excited about the NL West. And San Diego they're tied for the lead there. And with Walker Buehler being out, did they say how long he's going to be out yet? Or is he having Tommy John?
I thought it was 6 to 8 weeks initially reported, and then, but I always get confused. Is that 6 to 8 weeks to a rehab start, or is that 6 to 8 weeks to full Colin's shaking his head.
It's typically to a rehab start. I think that they're looking like if he's lucky and even able to come back like end of the season, because at this point you do 6 to 8 weeks. You're not gonna. It's already June. You're not gonna rush him back if you're already in position to be in the playoffs. Like, we'll see.
Well, good thing the Dodgers have that lineup. Ooh.
Yeah, yeah. I like that division a lot too. And you still have the Giants. I mean, they're not going anywhere. So that should be a fight to the end.
Yeah, I like what the Giants do, they're like the team right now to me that every team should aspire to be, because they do spend money. You know, it's not they're not broke. They're not shortchanging guys, but their scouting in their player development at the major league level is. And I guess help clean me. Can you help me with this? Because I know when we say player development is like I draft and develop and get to the big leagues, but that doesn't stop once you get to the big leagues. Like if Darren Ruff comes over to the Giants and they're working with him and now he's a 25 home run guy, like there is player development going on at the big league level.
No question about it. I mean, having the support system around the guys too is very important. A lot of it too, you got to give the player himself credit, because at a certain point you kind of figure out who you are as a player, and especially if you've had consistent success at any point in your career, you're like, okay, like this is what I need to do, or this is what I do when I'm at my peak, or when I'm most successful. So yes, and there's guys around you that can help bring that out of you. But at the end of the day, it's like, you know your swing, you know your delivery, you know your routine as far as how to prepare for the guy that's throwing against you. You know how to prepare for the lineup. So yes, there is some player development, but most of that happens at the minor league level, teaching guys how to formulate a routine, still building a swing, still building a delivery, but for the most part, when you're at that level, you're kind of in the middle of your career or approaching the middle of your career. You kind of have things figured out from a routine standpoint or a swing standpoint. Because if you're trying to overhaul a swing completely, which has happened in the past before, if you're trying to do that, man, it's a difficult spot to be in. And I was in a position similar where I had to rework a delivery almost completely at the big league level. Fortunately, I was able to do that. But it's not easy to do that at the same time as you're trying to get major league hitters out or hit major league pitching.
Yeah, because like you change that delivery, there's only so much you can do in like a November, December, January until you can see hitters, right? Or can you do it with a catcher and you can feel the spin, or you can you have to get results, and then it's like you only have so many opportunities in spring training, and then so like how long into the season are you willing to tweak and tinker with fundamental changes? I can just use like an example. This is a position player to me is Whit Merrifield, who's just been great and classic for a long, consistent time. And now is he still tweaking and going to make changes throughout the rest of the year? Like when as a big leaguer are you like, what I got this year is what I got this year, and I got to wait till next offseason?
Well, yeah, I mean, depends on how much failure your organization will allow you. Does that make sense? Like if you're in a position where you need to produce and you need to perform, now, the teams that are kind of at the bottom of the division, they're probably willing to, sacrifice wins for tinkering with things and letting guys develop and figure things out. But if you're, in the middle of the Dodgers or Padres or Toronto or Boston's order, you're only given so much leeway with that. So it totally depends on where your team's at and what the goals are for that team. Now they have, in the offseason, these guys have all this video, the slow motion cameras, and the biomechanical analysis, which has been around for a little while. But, guys are very in tune with their bodies and trying to move as efficiently and effectively as possible. And there's kind of a foundation of things that you need to do to be successful, whether you're a pitcher or a position player. So you do have some time. You do have some time to kind of make some changes, and the feedback is pretty instantaneous. If I'm a pitcher and I'm trying to change my delivery a little bit, you can watch the results from a bullpen session. Can I command the baseball? Can I spin the ball to a certain spot? And if I'm having live at bats with the guy in the box, you get feedback from the hitter. If a guy's like hitting lasers up the middle or to the opposite field, like, okay, maybe that pitch isn't working enough for me, or maybe it's the location, whatever the case might be. But you got to be a good self-evaluator. You got to figure these things out fairly quickly. But you are right. There's not a ton of time in the off season to make those changes, because you start, let's say, in November, and then you have December, January, and you're in spring training. So it's hard. Sometimes you got to take that gamble and take those risks to make changes and see if it helps.
Yeah, and this goes back to, we could go back to conversation with like Gossman when Kevin Gossman was talking about, like, if you're dominating at a certain level with your stuff, if there isn't this inherent pressure and need to find that changeup because you need that changeup, then that changeup's never really going to be as good as it can be. And I'm just using a changeup as an example, or, if it's a cutter, if it's a slider. And that's why I think it's really interesting. If you hear pitchers talk about some of the great pitches that they throw, it's like, I don't know if it's like epiphany is the word, but you just kind of get to this point. Like, you got to a point where you're like, I'm throwing this two-seamer. I know we've talked about this before, where like you had a two-seamer, you have a four-seamer, and you're like, you know what? It's two-seam city from here on out, but you had to get to that point.
I had to get to that point. I also realized, all right, my command with the four-seamer wasn't as good as I needed it to be. Like, I wasn't like a Greinke type who had pinpoint command or a guy like that. I was a really hard thrower, and I relied on a bunch of movement, which was fine. And as I got a little bit further into my career, I started to refine the command a little bit. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to just throw sinkers at the bottom of the strike zone. I'm going to have the catcher set up middle of the plate, and if it ends up middle in or middle away, whatever the case is, as long as it's down, I like my chances of having success. And if this hitter wants to take a chance and roll over this first pitch sinker and hit it to second base or hit it to shortstop, go for it. And as I worked my way into those counts, I would start to move the catcher around a little bit more. So, yeah, and you gotta understand who you are, understand what you do well and what you don't do so well. So the last thing I wanted to do was set up the catcher on the corners and then kind of, just slightly miss and be 1-0 and then maybe 2-0. Like, no, set up in the middle of the plate. My emphasis was on down in the strike zone and then move around accordingly. And then I could, open up spin. It's like if you don't get strike one, and all these young kids now, they want to throw a cutter, they want to throw a changeup. And I'll tell Cooper, I'll tell Will, I'll tell some of our really good arms on the team, it doesn't do any good if you're behind. So if you're 1-0 or you're 2-0 and you throw a curveball, hey, congratulations, now you're 3-0. It's not doing us any good. So emphasis on fastball command, getting ahead with that pitch, and knowing how to do that. And for me, it was sit the catcher in the middle of the plate, let the ball work, and then, once I get ahead, now I have a ton of.
Yeah, I don't think I like talking about the first pitch and stuff like it's not all cute. It doesn't all have to be cute. Some of the best advice you ever get in baseball that I apply to life every day is like, if you throw a good slider, like, that's a good slider. And the next one doesn't have to be awesome. And you might throw one that is worse than that. But if you throw a good slider, the worst thing you can do is get the ball back and say, I'm going to throw a better one. Like, this is going to be better. To your point, it's like understanding what you're good at and just trying to lean in and be consistent with that. But that's just not pitching, dude. That's getting up every day and making cold calls for sales. That's being a husband. That's being a father. That's being a friend. It's just like, you don't have to be the best necessarily. You just don't, if you're having a good day, the next day doesn't have to be any better. You can just try and enjoy it. It kind of brings me, I've got one last baseball thing here. I don't know if you saw There was a quote taken out of context from Manny about Jeter. And so quickly, Manny was saying that if Jeter had played in Kansas City, you know, he would have been, I don't know if it was like average or he'd be another baseball player. And when you read it or hear that, your instant reaction is like, well, Jeter was only great because he was in New York with other players. But the actual substance of the conversation from Manny, and this is what I'd be interested in your take on playing in different places, was that, like, if you play in a Boston or New York, those were the two places he called out. He said the fans make you better than you are. The fans force you to be better. And I just, like, I think it's easy to say if you're as good as Manny was and you played in Boston at that time, but I don't know. I just, like, to me, I think certain, like, Mike Trout plays in Los Angeles and nobody cares. Like, I think there's great players to your point, and what I'm learning from you, like, if you're a great player, you're a great player. You're going to be a great player.
Well, come on. He's not a regular player. I mean, he had 310 in his career. Like, that's it's not a regular guy. I mean, I kind of understand what he's saying. And Carl, I think that fan bases can elevate your your legendary status a little bit, especially if you do, you know, help your team perform to an extent of, like, winning championships. But that's going to happen anywhere. Your fan base is going to elevate you to that level, you know, if you're a championship player. But no, I mean, he's obviously much more than just, he would have been much more than an everyday player, a regular guy.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up watching the flip play, watching him run in the stands, hitting home runs when, you know, like just doing.
Can we talk about the stands thing real quick? Because I'm on the side that if you watch the video, Jeter did not have to he took about 10 extra steps until he dives into the stands there. So I know I'm a little biased Mets fan, but if you rewatch the clip, I am on the didn't need to dive in at all.
It's I think it's a good debate for, I think let's put a pin in that one, is where I think it's, you know, whether he went too much or whatever, like, he was there at the right time, at the right place. And there's a lot of plays in sports history where you can go back and say this and that, but, like, he made the play, you know, like, and he gets embraced at that time and the fan base loved him. He's special. I think certain players transcend that. I think certain players, you just go above their play, and it's just a way where, like, it brings everybody in. And so there's something about how transcendental Jeter was. The right guy at the right time when the Yankees coming back was good for baseball. And, like, and every generation around baseball has a feeling where they like the Yankees were unstoppable for a piece of time. And, like, that is kind of cool to sport, that, like, however old you are, you're like, yeah, I remember when the Yankees were a wagon. Overrated stuff coming up this weekend. My golf game. I'll have a full 18. I'll have a score posting for you guys. I played my first 16 softball game last night. Did not go particularly well. Bump Munchers lose by 7 dramatically. Wind was blowing out. And then last note, programming note, Mrs. Carl is going to be out of town Sunday to Thursday. So I got a couple days next week just being the dog. Very much looking forward to it.
It's good to be back here. Let's plan our next trip, because that was fun to be on the road.
It's a good homework assignment. I'll plan the next trip. Until then, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe. This is Starting 9. We got big stuff coming. We get back next week. A lot of MLB action. Stay tuned in this weekend, and we'll see you guys soon.